This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, Michael Covel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. So a little monologue today. I want to do a dissection. I want to dissect a Yahoo Finance tech ticker Jeff Mackey piece that came out on Monday. I want to dissect it. I want to go through this thing and just get you to think about the phraseology, the terminology, the words used by media. I think it'll be useful. First, just a quick note that was inspired from Larry Tentarelli. The idea of researching. For those fundamental folks out there, those fundamental investors, those fundamental traders, I've never seen this before, but literally there is advice saying that for every stock you own, you should be doing 1 hour of fundamental research per week on that stock. SEC filings, conferences, media, that you should constantly be doing all this homework, all this fundamental homework every week. You own 50 stocks, 50 hours a week, those 50 stocks. I have to say, that is some of the most asinine advice that I've ever heard. Absolutely asinine, because you know what? The best traders don't do that. And if you know the best traders don't do that, why should you? It's mind-boggling. If you own 50 stocks, you are going to study. Now, I don't know what this study is going to do. I mean, if you lose 25% on XYZ stock and you don't have a stop, but you've been doing your studying, does that mean the 25% loss is okay because you studied 1 hour for the prior week and your studying is going to give you the confidence that that 25% loss is not going to go to a larger loss? What if the 25% goes to 50% or 75%? Do you hang your hat on the fact that when that stock goes down 75%, but you've spent 1 hour per week for the last 5 weeks studying, and your studying has convinced you that it's impossible for that stock to go down 75%. What do? Do you put the adult diaper on? Put a gag in your mouth and hold on while it goes to zero? Come on. That's not the way it works. All this studying crap doesn't do you any good if the stock or stocks or whatever you own is going down. Because if you don't have a stop loss, you're going to lose your money, period. You have to have a risk management plan. Nobody can be right. So if you're doing all this studying with the idea that you're going to be right, well, if you're going to be right, you are fully prepared to let every position that you have in every market that you have go to zero. And then you'll be sitting there with an empty account, feeling great that you studied and you did everything according to your study. Kind of crazy. Okay, let me get into this dissection of this Yahoo Finance clip. I'm going to let this start playing.
Social media stocks entering a bear market. Mike Santoli is here to discuss whether or not that means bad things for the rest of your portfolio. Yuck. LinkedIn, Facebook, Amazon. Holy cow, did they crater last week?
They did. You know, you can categorize them as crowded longs or hedge fund favorites. All those names that did amazingly well and valuation didn't matter last year. They obviously came under pressure this time. I don't know if it's a kind of a deleveraging. Margin debt's at a record high. There's some chatter that the brokerage firms that serve these hedge funds are like, hey, calm it down a little bit, guys. And then that selling, you don't exactly know where it's going to stop just because, again, valuation didn't matter. So you're not really sure what a good price is for these stocks on the way down.
So that first 40 or so seconds was Jeff Mackey and another guy that I'm not familiar with. It sounds like they're probably doing a combination of teleprompter reading and talking on the fly. Let me just break down some of the terminology they're using. Crowded longs. I don't know anybody in 15 years, any top trader that's ever said to me, oh yeah, my system is about analyzing for crowded longs. What the hell does that mean? If the stock's going up, you're long. If it's going down, you either get out or go short. It's that simple. Crowded long, bullshit terminology. Next, hedge fund favorites. What the hell does that mean? Is there somewhere where I can go on Bloomberg that lists the hedge fund favorites? And what's the definition of a favorite anyways? Once again, stock up, I'm long. Stock goes down, I'm getting out or I'm going short, period. Now he says he doesn't know if these social media stocks are going down because of deleveraging. Well, of course, no one knows. You don't know exactly. I mentioned this in my Justin Fox interview the other day. Vernon Smith, who won the Nobel Prize for the discussion of bubbles, says quite clearly, we really don't know why bubbles go up. We don't really know why bubbles happen. They just do. So this other guy, once again, I don't know his name, but he says, chatter from brokerage firms. Chatter. How do you define chatter? Is there a place on the web where I can go to check the analysis of chatter? Once again, just bullshit. And then I love the anecdote that the chatter from the brokerage firms is telling it that you need to calm it down, guys. What does that mean? Look, the social media stocks are going up because people were buying them, period. They go down because people are selling them, period. That's it. There's no chatter with brokerage firms. There's no calm it down, guys. That's a bunch of bullshit too. Now he does say, you don't know when it will stop. Well, that's true. Thank heaven, there's some truth here. You don't know when it will stop. That's why you need a plan to deal with that type of uncertainty. So if you don't know when it will stop, do you, once again, like I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, do you ride it all the way to zero to prove yourself right because you did your studying? Now he concludes, he says, he's not sure what a good price is on the way down. No kidding. No one knows. You don't have to know what a good price is on the way down. You're not trying to capture or catch a falling knife. So you look up in the sky and you see a knife, a dagger coming missiling towards you, and you put your hand up to try and catch it? Again, bullshit, idiotic statement. Now look, I'm being pretty tough here. I don't know these guys. I mean, I know Mackey. I remember him from a couple years ago. He got a little crazy on TV. Maybe they're fine family men. Maybe they're fine guys. I don't know. But their job is to be newsreaders. And that in of itself is bullshit. That doesn't mean I have a dislike for them or I think they're bad people or whatever. But if you're going to hold yourself out there and say such absolute 100% nonsense on TV, well, then you have to expect some smartass like me to say, you know what? Actually, I'm not being a smartass right now. I'm simply breaking this down and saying, what is a crowded long? What is a hedge fund favorite? Forcing you, the audience, to say, God, he's right. They're just rambling away. They're just saying nothing. They're just filling air, and I'm listening. I'm not sure why I even heard this one because I don't pay attention to these channels. I think somebody sent me the link. Let me let this continue.
And the sell-offs become self-perpetuating as well. There is a social aspect to this. You can't ignore the psychology aspect of it. You can't ignore sociologically just the weirdness that we had going on. No one likes to draw comparisons to the bubbles. But for the love of all that is holy, we had plushies on the New York Stock Exchange floor 2 different weeks in a row. That's nuts. At some point, it just becomes embarrassing to buy. How low do these stocks have to get before you just don't want to touch them, where it's just you're embarrassed to kind of own Facebook because, oh my God, it's so clearly a bubble.
Now, I thought Mackey was great there. That's spot on. When you see rotund, plump, like action figures, plushies, or whatever he was talking about, when you see that kind of nonsense, it's like seeing the Fruit of the Loom guys on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. You kind of know that maybe the jig's up. And I loved his statement there about the sociological aspect, the psychological aspect, spot on. And I kind of thought at this moment in time that Mackey was going to actually push this segment in a different direction. So I was applause. I was applause for that segment. I was applause for that comment from Mackey about the bubbles. Unfortunately, it goes in a slightly different direction. Let it continue.
You're embarrassed to buy them now because, in part of their appeal was that they kept going up no matter how many people said they're too expensive. Right. And so it was the cool thing to do on the way up. And so it becomes, if it's the uncool thing to do on the way down, you don't really know exactly when. I do think last week you had a lot of reminders. It's really hard to kind of draw a really direct story about this, but a lot of reminders that the smart money wasn't really aggressively buying here. Not just the kind of silliness on the floor of the stock exchange. You had the high frequency trading debate, which I don't really think is about market direction, but it gave a reminder there. You had another big investment bank, Moelis and Company, say, we're going public. You had a lot of IPOs being jammed into the market. So I don't really know what the right price for those things is, but what I do have in mind is that the leadership, has to kind of come from somewhere else, more likely. The market, I think, has to kind of find its footing in some other areas before these things become the obvious bet again.
This poor guy, he's got every cliche. It's amazing in a couple minute segment how many cliches he can throw out. The smart money is not aggressively buying. Isn't your first thought, who the hell is the smart money? Define the smart money for me. You, sir, Mr. Guy on the TV show, do you really know who the smart money is? Have you written down in a lengthy spreadsheet list who this, quote, smart money is? Or are you just pulling terms out of thin air just to sound like you're smart? Aggressively buying. What's aggressively buying? Define it. Put a number to the word aggressively. Nah, they don't do that. Leadership has to come from somewhere else. Leadership? Leadership? How do you define leadership in a trading system? Seriously, how do you define leadership in a trade? You sit down and you're going to code the word leadership. It's binary, on or off, 1 or 0. You're just going to code that. I'm going to buy leadership. I'm going to sell leadership. Once again, it's just bullshit. And I'm not sitting here today trying to be some angry crank. I'm just kind of like saying, hey, let's dissect this. Let's look at this. What are these people saying? Sure, some of you out there in my audience are saying, Mike, who cares? I know all this already. I'll strike a chord with those people that have not thought about this, though. They've not thought about the literal breakdown, the word choices made in media. He goes on to say that there needs to be footing in other stocks. Some other stocks have to gain footing first before you can come back to bet on these other stocks that have been dropping. Once again, what does that mean? I guess it's too strong to say the word lie. But what do you say about somebody who expresses an opinion that they really can't back up in any way, shape, or form, and they say it with a certain, I know this is right, and a certain, I'm an expert, and they're given the megaphone of being on a program, a financial program that probably millions of people watch. But there's no foundation, there's no evidence for any of the statements, and they know there's not, but they allow themselves to be prostituted out to say this kind of stuff. You have to draw some kind of inference about that. You have to say something about the people, the content, the producers, the directors, the propaganda of the whole machinery that puts that out there. Now, you could take a step back and maybe Jeff Mackey, if he was sitting here, he'd say, Mike, stop being such a jackass. Stop being so hard on me. This is all just for entertainment. Maybe that's their comeback. And I'd say, Jeff, okay, it's for entertainment. But the reality is you and I know people are not watching this only for entertainment. Ma and Pa and maybe dumb people running public funds are actually listening and paying attention and making decisions. So you guys can sit on that side of the fence. I'll sit on this side of the fence and we'll throw snowballs at each other. I'm going to win, though. There's more evidence on my side. Let me let this continue.
And that's been the problem, though, is on Friday we saw a real change in the character where nobody wanted the value plays either. Yes. It was time just to take your money off the table from everything. Exactly. Which leads us to the big ominous market top factor. how much lower can we go on the tape? Depending on your time frame, you can draw charts that make this look like a nice, healthy consolidation.
Exactly.
Anything from that to an all-time crash 1987 scenario.
Yep.
What do you feel the mood is like out there, and do you think buyers are on the sidelines for equities as a whole?
I think the market is anxious, and that's encouraging. You haven't had a big percentage move from the top in the indexes. Under the surface, yes, you had a lot more pain. And to me, that follows the pattern of the last year and a half, 2 years, when you didn't have to have a big pullback before sentiment got a little bit nervous, and you actually did have some reason to buy in there. I do think earnings season is probably okay here. Just because people are not expecting anything out of it. Once again, it looks like people have a low hurdle to clear, and maybe that's going to be the reason we go up. But, you do hear a lot of people saying, look, this could be kind of a churn year. We're digesting a lot of stuff. Also, by the way, I'm thinking about 2012, when Apple was crashing. It had been the only game in town before that. Everyone said that must mean doomsday for the market. It really wasn't. People found other things to do.
I don't need to be redundant here, but let me just point out some of the phraseology there in his last segment. How much lower can we go on the tape? The answer is no one knows. No one knows. You never know. You never know. And if you're sitting out there right now and you're saying, Mr. Covel, how do you know you don't know? Drop me an email. I'm easy to reach. info@trendfollowing.com. I'll point you in the right direction. In that last segment, he also says, the market is anxious. And that is encouraging. The market is anxious. The market is made up of all the buyers and sellers out there. How does one know if the market is anxious? It's just kind of silly talk. Nervous sentiment. What's that? Earnings season will be okay. Oh, really? Even if it is okay or not okay. If your stock drops 25%, what are you doing? Whether earnings season is okay or not, if your stock drops 25%, what are you doing? Holding on because earnings season was okay? Not holding on because earnings season was okay? What are you doing? People have a low hurdle to clear. Low hurdle. What's the definition of low? What's the definition of hurdle? What's the definition of clear? Who are these people? Just simple questions. As an outside observer, listening to the experts, I just want to know. And they don't know either. They don't have a clue. But that's okay. I'm on this side of the fence throwing snowballs at them. If they don't like what I'm saying, maybe they can throw some snowballs back. A churn year. What's the definition of churn? How does one decide that it's this year? So it's not only do they take words and phrases that don't mean anything, they combine them to come up with an even more spectacular pile of poo, a churn year. Anytime you see anybody in media making the pronouncements, look for ways that you can take their words and quantify. Look for ways that you can take their words and say, this makes sense in an actual reality, not just in the land of the Matrix and fantasy, Dungeons and Dragons, but an actual real world that we can take these statements and understand them and put numbers to them. If there are no numbers, well, I'm going to have to let you conclude what happens if there's no numbers. Some of you could just love this stuff. Some of you could just love to be seduced. If I'm going to be seduced, she better be hot. She better be really attractive, because I don't want to be seduced by some of this bullshit from media talking heads. Now, some of you might enjoy that. Maybe that just gets your rocks off. Maybe that's your thing. Hey, go for it. I've spent my career trying to help people to see beyond the maze, beyond the haze. That's what I enjoy doing. I'm going to go to something a little bit different to end, inspired from a column that James Altucher has written. James has put an article out titled 10 Reasons You Have to Quit Your Job in 2014. I don't need to read James's reasons. I'm sure I already agree with them, but I will go over them briefly. Number one, the middle class is dead. In fact, if you're defining yourself as the middle class, just stop. Who knows what that means exactly? But James is right. The middle class is dead. Start over. Do something. You've been replaced. That's number 2. You have been replaced. And you better figure out a way to do something with yourself now that you've been replaced. Replaced in that typical machine style paradigm that we've seen since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. It's over. Flush it down the drain, as James would say. Corporations don't like you. Number 3. Yeah, corporations don't like you. So start your own corporation. Number 4, money is not happiness. Absolutely 100% true. Yeah. Misery, which is the lack of all money, is not fun. I mean, money is useful to pay for some of the bills and all that kind of stuff. But if you are working your way up, if you're sitting out there right now and you're broke or you don't have the money that you think you want, you have to really ask yourself, what are your motivations for it? What are the goals? Is it the Lamborghini? Is that it? Are you 25, 35, 45, and you want the Lamborghini, so you will give up everything so you can get the Lamborghini, so you can drive the $500,000 car down the street, and everyone will look at you that you just want that satisfaction? Is that what you're driving for? Oh man, I hope not, because I really don't want to have a beer with you. I don't want to have tea with you. I don't want to know you if that's your typical way of going. Please. Number 5 from James. Count right now how many people can make a major decision that can ruin your life. Brilliant statement. Brilliant statement. Well, if you got a boss that can fire you on a moment's notice on his whim, well, you're pretty much effed right there, aren't you? But if you go at it alone, there's less and less people that can do something harmful to you. You control your destiny. And if you fail, you pick yourself back up again and you march on. Number 6, is your job satisfying your needs? I'm not reading this section from James verbatim, but I like the title. Number 6, is your job satisfying your needs? I don't know if it's a job. If someone else is in control of you, most likely the needs aren't being satisfied. Number 7, your retirement plan is for shit. Spot on, James, in many, many different ways. Your retirement plan. First off, why are you retiring? So you can go to Del Boca Vista and sit around with the other folks dressed in matching pink outfits while you drive golf carts around perfectly manicured sod in South Florida? Is that your idea of fun? Please no, say it's not true. You do not want to be doing that. And plus, let's face it, if they can jack interest rates to 0, what are they going to go for next? What's going to be the next way that they're going to take to distribute? Those retirement funds, boy, those retirement accounts of all of ours are surely going to be looking like fat pigs to the politicians that they can just lance and steal from. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but hey, excuses. Number 8. Just do it. Just do it. Michael Jordan 101. Just do it. Go for it. Number 9, it's okay to take baby steps. Tom Basso pointed this direction on my podcast. He said, look, don't quit your job. Start trading longer term approaches. Then once you get to a point, you can leave the job. Use the job to fund your day to day until you can get to the point where you want to snip it. Now, I will take it a little bit farther than James and say you might be better off just to snip it completely. Find a place that you can live for far less money, but walk away now. The faster you walk away, the faster that you can get ahead to a place that's a lot nicer than working for the man. Number 10 from James, abundance will never come from your job. Only stepping out of the prison imposed on you from your factory will allow you to achieve abundance. You can't see it now. It's hard to see the gardens when you're locked in a jail. Yeah, being locked in a jail is no fun. And I thought that was an appropriate place to end this podcast. locked in a jail. Think back to what I was talking about at the very beginning. The idea that you would spend 1 hour per stock, research, reading, SEC reports, filings, conference calls, 1 hour of that for each stock in your portfolio per week. That's locked in a jail. That's not the trend following way. Absolutely not the trend following way. Locked in a jail is also listening to the media, going through the breakdown that I talked about. That's locked in jail. If you can't see that for the utter bullshit that it is, you're stuck. Look, there are so many opportunities out there. So many. If you're sitting there right now and you're like, I just don't know what to do. The equity markets are up and down. They've been generally up the last couple of years, but they're getting a little rocky and a little volatile right now. Maybe you're feeling a little nervous. You're having fantasies and visions of 2000 to 2002, 07 to 08. Well, you should be having fantasies and visions of another one of those downturns. I'm not telling you it's going to happen. I can't give any prediction. I can't give any time frame. But I think that's also why it's so important to think about those 10 points from James Altucher. There's never been a better time to leave the system, to take the chains off, and to go. Make it happen. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.